If you've spent any time in the professional world, especially, in tech, you've probably heard the term Death March project.
Or lived through
Or
one.
lived through one, yeah. Maybe you're in one right now.
And we should probably define that really precisely before we go any further.
Good idea.
The sources are very clear. A death march is a project where, say, the schedule, or the budget, or the staff,
The basic resources.
exactly, they're constrained by 50 to even 100% of what they rationally should be,
100%. So basically, you have half the time you actually need?
or half the people. It's setting yourself up to fail from the very beginning. The objective likelihood of failure is over 50% before you even start.
That sounds like a total anomaly, a once-in-a-career mistake.
You would think so.
Yeah.
But the really sobering conclusion from all the sources is that these projects are, well, they're the norm.
The norm.
Yeah. The stats show the average project is already running 6 to 12 months late and 50 to 100% over budget.
Yeah.
The Death March is just a more extreme version of what's already happening everywhere.
Okay, so if this is the miserable reality we're all living in, our mission for this deep dive has to be figuring out that paradox. Why do smart people and smart businesses keep signing up for these impossible journeys?
Right. What are the psychological traps, the political drivers?
And most importantly, what are the strategies for survival? Because some people do make it through. Let's start with the root causes. If the constraints are so obviously insane, cut the budget in half, double the features, why does an organization do it?
Well, first thing is usually competitive pressure. It's almost always about the market.
So, A, we have no choice kind of situation.
Exactly. Management feels like their back is against the wall. A system has to be ready in 6 months, even if a rational plan says 12.
Because otherwise the competition just eats your lunch.
They grab the entire market. So rationality kind of goes out the window.
But the sources suggest it's not always about the market. Sometimes it gets personal. It becomes about internal power dynamics.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's when things get really toxic. Politics can become the dominant force. The project stops being about a product and starts being a political weapon.
A weapon.
Yeah. A death march might be the result of a power struggle between two managers trying to climb the ladder. Or, and this is the really dark one, sometimes it's deliberately set up to fail.
As revenge.
As a form of corporate revenge. You put a rival manager on a project that's designed to explode, so they take the fall in a very public way.
Wow. So if you're a developer and you feel like you're walking into that kind of a political minefield, what do?
You have to trust your sixth sense.
Hmm.
The advice from the veterans is really simple on this.
Which is?
Ask your manager about the politics you're sensing. And if their answer is naive or kind of ambiguous,
Like, oh, don't worry about that stuff.
exactly. If you get that kind of answer, assume the worst. Because it means the political games are more important than actually succeeding.
Okay, so we have the cynical politics on one hand,
Right.
but then there's the complete opposite force, right? Just naive optimism.
Yes, and you see this a lot with younger technical staff. They have this conviction that they can just overwhelm any problem with.
Sheer cleverness or brute force?
Right. 48 hours of nonstop coding, a few pizzas, and somehow they'll make up for months of bad planning.
I think we've all been there.
We have, and it's that mindset that leads to those insanely optimistic commitments in the first place.
And the battle-scarred veteran in the corner just shakes their head.
The advice from them is very simple. When they hear a naive young manager make one of those promises, it's just one word: run.
But sometimes you can't run. Sometimes the chaos is external, it's unavoidable.
Yes, of course. External crises absolutely force these projects on people. Think about the sudden appearance of a disruptive technology, like when the World Wide Web or Java first appeared.
Everyone had to scramble.
Everyone. And it forces companies to use bleeding-edge technology, which, has huge risks and is totally unpredictable.
And then there's always government regulation, the non-negotiable deadline.
That's the classic pattern. A new regulation comes out with a hard deadline years in the future, and senior management just ignores it
Until the last possible second.
until the last second.
Yeah.
The year 2000 problem was the perfect example. We had decades of notice, but it turned into this global panic-fueled death march because the deadline was absolute.
So you've got this impossible project forced on you by competition or politics or some crisis. Why would anyone agree to it? I mean, 13, 14-hour days, 6 days a week, that's a huge ask.
And that's the human paradox, isn't it? The odds are terrible, but there are some really powerful reasons people participate.
Okay, let's hear them. The money has to be number one.
For sure. The high-risk, high-reward promise of immense wealth. It's the startup dream. The stock options might make you a millionaire if you could just get this thing over the finish line.
But if it's not financial, it often boils down to what the sources call the Mount Everest syndrome.
It does. It's the challenge, the pure test of your own fortitude. Can you achieve this amazing technical thing just for the sake of it?
The example they gave was putting Windows 95 on a wristwatch.
Which is technically impressive, I guess, but it has absolutely zero real-world value.
So you have to ask yourself, so what?
Exactly. The source says you should ask, so what, 2 or 3 times. If the final answer is something totally trivial, like you're enabling someone to program their refrigerator from their watch,
Then maybe it's not worth the sacrifice.
right. But if you can explain it to a non-technical person without feeling like a complete fool, maybe the effort is worth it.
And there's that psychological pull, too, the buzz from being on a team like that.
A huge pull. We've all heard the stories about the original Macintosh project team. Even when projects fail, the veterans talk about them years later in these, hushed, reverent tones. It was a noble failure.
But we have to talk about the darker side of this, which is just coercion.
We do. For a lot of people, it's not optional.
What do you mean?
Think about an older programmer, say a 45-year-old COBOL developer, or someone in a company that's doing massive downsizing.
If they say no, they're out of a job.
Refusing the death march just means unemployment. They're participating for pure professional survival.
That's grim. But there is one other kind of intriguing reason, that the death march can be a form of freedom.
It's a twisted kind of freedom, yeah. It becomes a coveted skunkworks project.
You get to escape all the corporate bureaucracy.
All the red tape, the methodology police who slow everything down, the team gets to go off-site, fly a pirate flag, and just be rebels with a cause, even if the cause is probably doomed.
Okay, so let's say you're in, you've signed up. To survive, you first have to understand the political landscape, right? The sources have 4 classifications.
Yes, and this is your political compass. You have to know what kind of fight you're in. First is Mission Impossible.
The Hollywood movie version?
Exactly. Low chance of success, but the team's happiness and loyalty are sky high. Everyone believes.
Okay, what's second?
Kamikaze. This one is doomed, but again, the team morale is high. They see it as a glorious, necessary failure.
Then it gets ugly.
It does. Number 3 is ugly. This one has a high chance of success, but very low happiness. The manager will sacrifice the team's well-being to hit the target.
And the worst of all
Is suicide. Low chance of success, low happiness. The project is doomed, and the team is being set up explicitly to be the scapegoat.
And you have to know which one you're in and who the players are. The owner, the customer, the champion.
You have to, because when someone comes to your desk and asks how it's going, you need to know in an instant if that question is from a friend or a foe.
But just being politically aware isn't enough, is it? You need a process to survive.
Awareness without process is useless. And the single most critical strategy for survival is triage.
Triage. So ruthless honesty from day one.
Ruthless. It's about admitting right up front that you cannot deliver everything on the wish list. Some requirements will never be fulfilled.
You have to sort them into buckets.
The must-do, the should-do, and the could-do. If you could just nail that critical 20% of features that deliver 80% of the value, you might actually make it.
And if you don't do that triage early, you end up with that ugly crisis right before the deadline.
Which is almost always a catastrophe. The original manager gets fired, becomes the scapegoat.
And a new manager comes in to do the painful triage that should have been done months ago.
Under incredible pressure. And that's the lesson. If, at the very beginning, your stakeholders refuse to accept that kind of hard-nosed prioritization,
Then what?
the most rational decision you can make is to resign before the inevitable meltdown happens on your watch.
Okay, let's talk about the peopleware. If you're managing this impossible project, what are some of the hacks veterans use?
Well, rule 1 is you should always insist on choosing your own team.
But you often can't, right?
You often can't. So if you can't, there's this ingenious strategy the veterans use. You accept all the staff you're given, even the ones they call the bozos, but then you assign the less useful ones to, and this is a quote, manning the coffee machine, changing fuses, and other essential work.
You sideline them while you fight to get better people.
You isolate the problem when you fight like hell to get the talent you actually need.
What about overtime? You can't just run people into the ground indefinitely.
You can't.
Yeah.
It has to be managed in strategic bursts. The data is clear. Sustained overtime leads to exhaustion. Error rates go through the roof, and eventually the whole team just collapses. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
And finally, there's the ultimate process safeguard, the thing that stops what the sources call thrashing.
Oh, thrashing is the worst. That feeling of constant, chaotic activity, but zero actual forward progress.
So how do you combat that?
With the daily build,
Meaning?
you compile, link, install, and test the entire system every single day.
As if you had to ship it tomorrow morning.
Exactly. It forces everyone to integrate their work continuously. You can't hide a catastrophic problem for weeks. As Jim McCarthy put it, the daily build is the heartbeat of the project. It's how you know you're alive.
It forces you to confront your risks every 24 hours.
Every single day. It keeps the project honest.
So if you're going to succeed, or even just survive, it's this incredibly dangerous balancing act. You need the peopleware to keep your team sane, the political savvy to navigate the landscape.
And the ruthless process management, like triage and daily builds, to keep making progress.
At the end of the day, it really comes down to an individual's level of commitment, doesn't it? What they're willing to sacrifice.
It does. It reminds me of something I read in the sources about a scientific conference where they asked the attendees a question.
What was the question?
They asked who would be willing to sign up for a one-way, non-return trip to Mars.
A one-way trip.
One way. About a third of them raised their hands. They're willing to commit their entire lives to a dangerous, high-stakes mission.
Which brings this whole thing right back to our professional lives. If people are willing to do that for a mission to another planet, how often do we get coerced into a corporate one-way trip?
A suicide project. A kamikaze mission.
Exactly. A project that demands we sacrifice our health, our families, our personal resources. And for what? Rewards that are way, way less significant than going public or saving a company from bankruptcy.
And that really is the central question of modern professional survival. You have to ask yourself, what is the true cost of my commitment here? And is a ticket on this particular death march actually worth the price?
Something to think about the next time someone asks you to cut your schedule in half. Until next time, thanks for joining us for the Deep Dive.